In our society today, there's a lot of talk about profiling people when we look for criminals or terrorists, and it's become a word that's not very well accepted. Even though scientifically it's been proven that you can actually watch a person's body language or their facial expressions and tell things about them. Could this method of facial recognition, of looking at the way a face looks, unravel a question that is posed in this week's Torah lesson, in this week's Torah portion? Well, this week's portion is called Toldot. It starts off by mentioning that Yitzhak is the son of Abraham, but it mentions Abraham twice in the first verse. And our sages are perplexed by that, and they ask, why is it necessary? So our sages explain that people doubted whether or not Isaac, Yitzchak, was Abraham's son. How could a man who was 100 years old give birth to a child? So these cynics who were skeptical of him being the father needed proof. So our sages say that God performed the miracle and made Yitzchak's facial expressions look like Abraham's. But if you think about it, that's problematic. Abraham was 100 years old, probably with wrinkles and a gray beard. And Isaac was a young baby. How can you even look alike when you're talking about such an age difference? So there are some sages that explain it differently. And they say that Abraham, his face shone with his attribute of kindness, which we've spoken about before, that Abraham was so kind. He stood out in his generation for being such a kind person. It radiated from his face. But Yitzhak was born with the attribute of severity, of sternness. But what happened was when God changed Isaac's facial expression, he made him to emanate kindness also. So regardless of age, regardless of a beard, you could see in him this attribute of kindness that was showing in him because he shared the same kind of facial features of a person who is kind. So if God can transform a person's face, then we should be able to transform our own personalities to be kind. And this is part of what I've been speaking about for many weeks, that we need to transform our society from one that is selfish and full of anger to one that is kind and full of love by doing a good deed for another person and then asking them to pay it forward to someone else. And by doing that, we not only make the world better, but we start to transform ourselves, that our whole attitude toward people is to be kind and to be helpful toward one another.